Hi everyone, welcome to part 2 of Activity 1, Open Weather Map API Data Pipeline. In this part, we'll be showing you how to set up the Apache Airflow environment with Docker, server-side with AWS EC2 and Route 53.
All right, let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is open up an internet browser and go to the orangutan-stem GitHub repo. I have it already bookmarked up here, but I will always leave the URL in the video description down below. So if this is the first time you're visiting our channel, please subscribe, but also some of the videos are independent of each other. So if you're just coming here to learn how to set up Airflow on an EC2 instance and point it to a DNS record with Route 53, you're in the right spot. Just know that you'll want to use this GitHub repo as your central spot for accessing all the wikis that we'll be following along with, as well as the actual code we'll be pulling from. So if you go to the wiki section, you'll see that we have a table of contents. We're on activity 1, so I will go ahead and click that link, and part 1 of the video walkthrough is available here if you want to go ahead and watch that and look at how to set up the Airflow environment with Docker locally on your Mac OS, Windows, or Linux desktop machine. The video pretty much covers all the angles and prerequisite tools and applications you're going to need to have installed. So go ahead and give that video a watch if you are interested. If you already know how to do that, you are in the right spot, and we will jump to section 8, which is setting up this build on EC2 server with Docker Traefik, Route 53, and Elastic IP. So I wrote up a big paragraph that goes into the details around how much EC2 costs. It could be fairly expensive if you're not very strategic about it. To run Airflow on EC2, it's recommended that you at least use a T2.large or a T2.xlarge. So the cost for that is approximately about 6 or 7 cents an hour. If you go up to TX xlarge, it's about 13 cents an hour. So just be wary of that. I think I have it outlined here that you are going to want to go with at least a T2.large, and in this video I'll be using the T2.large. So just be cautious with cloud cost. You want to probably shut down the EC2 server if you're not going to be using it for anything. But if you want to have this pipeline or pipelines you're going to be running at your company, always available, you'll definitely want to have this EC2 server always turned on. So the way we're going to build it is with EC2, Airflow, and Docker. There's a lot of YAML files if you go through the Codebase, so I'll open that up here. And based on how we run these YAML files with Docker Compose, basically institutes how it's going to be set up. So we have just a standard docker-compose.yaml file. This is for local development. So if we wanted to run Docker and Airflow locally, you can see here, warning, this configuration is for local development. Do not use it in a production deployment. This is because usually when we deploy Airflow and Docker on an EC2 server, we have to do a couple of different things to point the web server to an accessible spot so that anybody that's authenticated to access the EC2 server and then all of the ports that correspond to it could see that Airflow web server where we set up connections, set up variables, and other various things that are a little bit easier to do through UI versus the standard command line. So we have the prod.yaml file. This is the one we'll actually be using to set up the prod build on EC2. So we'll go more into that as we get closer to it, but you'll see this compose/prod/Traefik. We have a Docker file and a Traefik.yaml. So this is basically the Docker component we're going to be using. It's called Traefik. It's a reverse proxy load balancer that basically points your IP to a specific DNS record so that we could access things that the application like Airflow runs, such as the web server. So hopping back into the actual wiki itself, that's what this section basically talks about, is that we have a bunch of YAML files. Based on how we run them, it's going to configure our local Docker setup or our prod Docker setup. So in this, we'll be focusing on the prod Docker setup. So setting up an EC2 server, fairly easy actually with AWS. So I'm going to go ahead and open up AWS here in just a sec. So I'm just going to open up the console. If you don't already have access into your console, you're going to need a root user and then an IAM account associated to that billing account, which is affiliated to the root user. And you're going to want to make sure you have access into EC2. So I already have it pinned as a recently visited cloud component. So if you wanted to just access it for the first time, you can just type in the search bar up here, EC2. And I can already see I have an instance running. So if I go to airflow.orangutan-stem, it's not doesn't have certificates on this already. So I am getting a non-secure alert. Mac is very robust about their security, so they're just trying to be safe, and understandably so with all the web threats that exist today. So I can see this DAG is pointed to an actual public IP. It's airflow.orangutan-stem.com. It's going to require a login, which we could set up with the Airflow command line interface, which we'll show later in the video. But essentially, we have an EC2 instance running in the background. So if I opened up a new terminal here and I went into SSH, this Airflow EC2 instance that I have running, I can just go to SSH airflow.orangutan-stem.com, and because I already have this set up as an authenticated host name, it's going to redirect me automatically to the EC2 instance on the command line through SSH. So that's excellent. And if I do Docker PS, I could see I have all of these necessary containers to run Airflow on EC2, all running nicely. So that is the goal of the activity. So the first thing we're going to do is build a new EC2 instance from scratch. So to do this, you'll want to click this big orange button that says Launch Instance. And if we go back into the wiki, it gives pretty clear-cut instructions on what you're going to want. So we're going to want to use the latest Ubuntu version 22.04.3. So I'll go back into Launch an Instance, and we can just give this the name Activity1 EC2 Airflow Setup, just so it's distinguishable and we'll know which one it is. We're going to want to select Ubuntu. It'll default to the 22.04, which is the one we'll want. Just use the the pre-selected architecture. You're not going to want to modify this. But once you get down to instance type, you're definitely going to want to modify this because it won't work on a T2.micro. As I said, you're going to want to use a T2.large or T2.extra large. So just to prove that T2.large works, not recommended for an actual production grade Airflow environment. I would definitely recommend the T2.x large. That's the one I usually set up when I work at various companies, and I'm responsible for building a production grade Airflow environment without the AWS managed workflows for Apache Airflow or GCP Cloud Composer. You're definitely going to want to use a bigger EC2 instance. So you're still going to save a lot of money compared to those cloud services like Cloud Composer and managed workflows for Apache Airflow. Those cost at upwards of 10K or more a year, and this will cost about $1,000 or $2,000 at most, depending on which instance type you use. But for T2.large, it should be about $1,000 a year if you kept it running all the time. So again, if that's not in your budget, be sure to shut this down. It should only be about $1 and some change if you have it up for a couple hours while you're doing the exercise. So definitely within the limits of the AWS free cloud credits if this is your first time using them. So if we go back to the wiki here, so we selected the right instance type. We're going to definitely want to make sure we have at least 200 gigabytes of storage. So that's at the bottom. It defaults to 8. So just make sure to update this to something like 200. I don't know why it didn't let me enter, but it should. No problem there. And if we go back to the wiki here, let's just see what else it has us do. We're going to want to create a new SSH access identity file key pair. So to do that is fairly easy. We'll just go to this key pair setup right here, create a new key pair, and we're going to want to use the .pem for OpenSSH. So it says it to give a name like orangutan-server key. So I'll just use the same one as the activity so I get to follow along just as the steps state. I think there's going to be a couple steps where I can't, but I'll do my best to mimic it if I were you. And that's going to go ahead and download to just my downloads folder on my local machine. So that's all good. And if we go back to here, it looks like we got the Ubuntu version selected correctly, the instance type, and the storage requirement, as well as generating the SSH access key key pair that we needed. So the next step is just telling us to move it from our downloads folder into the correct .ssh directory. This is just so it's in a clean and easy place to access. It's just best practice in my opinion. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up a new terminal. So I'll open up a bigger one just so it's easy for y'all to read. I'm going to copy the command just as it is in the wiki here and paste it into my terminal. And it's probably going to shoot out an error if you just open up a blank terminal from scratch. So you're going to want to definitely CD into your downloads folder where the file is most likely in. And then if I just up arrow twice, I can just get that same command back again, and there should be no error reported. So if I go back into my home or root directory and I CD into .ssh, and I just can hit tab after I type .ss to autocomplete, I could see then, hopefully, if I do ls, that I have that orangutan-stem or orangutan server key.pem file here. And I have a couple other ones just from other EC2 instances I've either started or stopped or are currently running. So this is the one we're looking for here. So as long as you have that one there, you're all good. We completed this command of moving the actual .pem file from our downloads folder into the .ssh directory. We're just going to want to do one thing if we're on Mac. I think for Windows you won't have to do this, but for Mac, as I said, there's a lot of security things that go with Mac, and all for good purpose. So I'm just going to want to copy and paste this here. So that gives me the appropriate read, write, modification permissions needed, so other applications can access it that are authenticated. So that chmod 600 is just going to allow different applications to read and write and access that .pem file, so we can tunnel into it whenever we want to SSH. And it looks like we're pretty much done with the section of launching our EC2 server. So the next part, we're going to allocate an elastic IP and a DNS record to the EC2 server, so that we could actually go to the public URL and not have to type an IP address. So if I wanted to type something like airflow.orangutan-stem.com, it would just automatically point to it. So we're gonna have to do a couple things first, like clone the code base onto the EC2 server, since the EC2 server was just freshly initiated, and we're gonna have to do some stuff in Route 53. So we'll also want to make sure we launch the instance, which I didn't do yet. So to do that, let's make sure we have all of the storage requirements, which is 200 gigs. We have the key pair for the SSH, which we already set up and downloaded and moves into the appropriate .ssh directory. We have instance type set as t2.large, and we're using Ubuntu 22.04, which all looks correct. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the instance. This takes usually about 60 seconds. You'll get a green check mark usually right next to it that says running. Once it's all good to go. So I will go ahead and pause the video and start it up again once it's running, which hopefully you'll have no problems. After about 60 seconds, you'll see the same. All right, it looks like our EC2 instance is up and running. So I'm going to go ahead and click into it. And everything in the instance state looks like it is good to go, which is that check mark and the green running text right below it. So we'll go back to the wiki. There's a couple things once our EC2 instance is running that we'll want to do, which is update some of the inbound rules on the security group affiliated to the EC2 instance. So pretty easy task. We'll go to the security section down here below. If you click into this actual security groups, SG hyphen and then whatever alphanumeric string of text that you see below, you'll be redirected to the actual security group that's affiliated to the EC2 instance. It's usually auto-generated if you had no rules set at the time or you didn't affiliate a pre-existing security group to the EC2 instance. So it says in the documentation we have to set up inbound rules on the security group for TCP traffic, all ports 80, 443, and 22. So I won't go into too much detail on what these do, but essentially this is for allowing specific internet traffic to go through our EC2 instance. So, port 80, 443, 22, pretty much all affiliated to just, general internet traffic as well as SSH. I'll let you ChatGPT or Google which are which. Again, this is not a video focused on what network IP and ports and all that stuff is for. So I'm going to want to set this up for 80, 443, and 80, 22, and 443. So looks like 22 is already created by default, which is for SSH. And then just use this anywhere IPv4, which just allows all traffic. So I'll go ahead and click Save Rules once all these security group rules are applied, and it should be good to go at this point. So we'll go back into the wiki to see what we have to do. So we're going to allocate an elastic IP and DNS record to the EC2 server and Route 53. So within EC2, we're going to go to this elastic IP section and allocate the actual IP address. The reason we use elastic IP is just so we have a static or fixed IP that is publicly accessible, so that we can point things like the Airflow web server to it. So just in this EC2 section, if you go back to the EC2 instance dashboard, you can go scroll down here on the left. If I move my face a little bit, you could probably see it better, and you'll want to click this elastic IP. So I already have one elastic IP assigned to the pre-existing EC2 instance that is running Airflow and Docker on EC2. So I have another one that's just kind of hanging around. If you wanted to delete these, you can just release elastic IP address here. and then click release, and you won't see it there visible anymore. But if this is our first time, we'll want to go to Elastic IPs, allocate Elastic IP, and then just use all the default settings. There's nothing really special here. So I'll go ahead and click allocate. Looks like my face keeps getting in the way. And we're good to go. So it looks like we have a new Elastic IP that was allocated but not assigned to an EC2 instance yet. So if I go back here, I'll see the new IP that is created. And if I click into it, I could associate the Elastic IP address. So to do this, I'll just click into that associate Elastic IP button. And then we'll want to assign an instance to it. So we'll want to select the one that we just created, which is Activity 1 EC2 Airflow Setup. And then we'll want to click Associate. So you don't have to check this box unless you want to reutilize this Elastic IP for a different EC2 instance, but I'll leave it unchecked just for the exercise. And it looks like it's good. So if we go back to the EC2 instances, we click into this EC2 instance, this should be the actual Elastic IP that we just assigned to it. All is good there, and we'll keep going with the wiki instructions. So the next step we're going to want to do is go into Route 53 and register a domain. So if we go into the search bar in the AWS console and start typing Route 53 and click into it, we'll be redirected probably to the dashboard. It might have you click a few, welcome prompts if this is your first time visiting it. But if I go into hosted zones here, I could see I have a couple already. So I have the actual domain orangutan-stem.com and then the subdomain, which is airflow.orangutan-stem.com. So if I go to registered domains, what it's telling me in the wiki is that I'm going to basically have to find a cheap domain that I want to assign this Airflow subdomain EC2 instance Airflow web server to point to. So the cheapest options are usually about $13 a year annually. If you're creating a portfolio site, or you just have some IPs or some domains available already for your company, you could already leverage those as long as they're already in Route 53. Otherwise, you're gonna have to create a new one. So I'll just go ahead and create a new one. So I'll click this register domains button, and then you'll start typing things like I want to type orangutan-orchard.com and see if it's available. Probably not. Oh, look at my luck today. So it is actually available, and I'm going to go ahead and select it and then proceed to checkout. This process takes usually about anywhere from 10 minutes to a couple hours. I've registered a couple domains in Route 53 before, so be patient with it. I'll go ahead and pause the video and restart it and give you an indication of how long it took for that one to register. But if I look at the request here, this section right here, you can see this one has a status of in progress. So it was submitted just a few minutes ago. I will come back and resume the video once this is successful status, and then we could start actually assigning the associated DNS records in the wiki that is laid out here. So I will be right back.
All right, I'm back, and it looked like it took about 20 minutes for the domain to register and the request to go through. So we're seeing the successful status in green, which is great. It was submitted around 8:34 local time, and it took about 20 minutes. So not too bad, but you can anticipate probably anywhere from 10, 20 minutes all the way to 2 or 3 hours. But you can just keep refreshing the browser, and you'll see the status update once it is ready. So when it is ready, you'll go to hosted zones, and we'll go back to the wiki here just so we can follow along. So we register a domain. It's going to cost $13 annually, and it's billed and auto-renewed at the point or the date that you register it. So I can expect another $13 to be added to my AWS bill for that orangutan-orchard.com domain next year for another $13. So the next step we're going to want to do is go to hosted zones on the left-hand menu and add a new hosted zone for airflow.yournewdomainname.com. So if it is a .com, so it doesn't have to be, obviously. So we'll go click this orange button for create hosted zone. And we're going to create one called airflow.orangutan-orchard, which is the new domain that we just registered. And keep this option for public hosted zone selected, and we don't have to add any tags. So I'm going to go ahead and click create hosted zone as it is instructed. We'll see here that we have a couple new records available. So we have the NS and the SOA record. So if we go back to the activity, I think we'll only focus on the NS records. We won't really have to do anything else with the SOA as of right now. We'll want to copy and paste those new NS records into the original domain name that we just had registered. So under the NS record, we'll see some new, hopefully we'll see some new value route traffic NS values right here. So what we're going to do is if we click into this, we can actually just copy and paste all of these here pretty easily. I think it just lets us copy all of them at once. So if I do that, I'll just hit Command C, or if you're on a Windows computer, it would be Control C. We'll go back here and it says we want to paste them into the DNS record that is our actual domain name, not the airflow dot, your domain name.com. So if I go back to Route 53 here, I have all these copied hopefully with Command C or Control C, depending on your OS. And then if I go back into this hosted zone and go into orangutan-orchard.com, what I'll want to do is select this NS record and then click Edit Record. And basically right below here, we'll just click another Enter. So we get a new line to paste all those NS records from the previous airflow.yourdomainname.com. So you can't obviously use my domain name since I already have it registered. So make sure to replace it with the one that you purchased and make sure it has the right extension. So if it's .com, .info, .io, a lot of new ones that you see these days, lots of .coms running out. So once this is good, we'll want to click Save. My face is just constantly getting in the way on AWS today. And I'll click Save. And if I go back here now, I'll see about 8 records for this NS record for the orangutan-orchard.com. So that's looking good. So the last thing we're going to want to do is create a new record within this yourdomainname.com hosted zone for an A record for Airflow. So this is for the actual subdomain. So I'll just click this orange button for create record, and then I'll do Airflow dot, and the dot is already there, so I don't have to write the dot. So it's just Airflow, and then the record type is already default to A, and the value is actually where we're going to want to assign our elastic IP that we just created. So it says it right here, elastic IP you created earlier. So to get there, I'm just going to go ahead back into another console, and I'll go into EC2, and I'll go into the instances, and I can just copy and paste this right here under elastic IP. So there's a little copy icon here, so you can see that it was copied successfully, and then I'll just paste that into the value here. Thinking I'm on a Windows computer, but I'm not. So I will go ahead and create record, and it should show up as an A record as desired. That was the default one, and we have the value routed to the elastic IP we assigned to the EC2 instance. So if you made it this far, we're getting really close, so hang in there. That's actually probably one of the most complex parts outside of the Docker install on the EC2 instance. So we're getting there. We're actually almost able to SSH into the actual EC2 instance. So to do that, what we're going to do is open up a fresh new terminal here. So I'll open up a big one so that we can see the text nice and clear. We're going to want to CD into SSH directory. So it's cd.ssh hyphen / and then what we're going to want to do is create a new file. It's called config. So if you're on Mac or Linux OS desktop, you're in luck today. You get to use the touch command. Otherwise, if you're on Windows, you have to use this weird new item command, but it works on PowerShell. I tested it. So since I'm on a Mac, I will go ahead and just use the touch command here. So I'll do touch config. I'm already in the SSH directory, which is great. So in the part 1 video, I had recommended that you installed VS Code. The reason here is, it's just a little bit easier to, copy and paste into files without extensions. As you can see, this config doesn't have a .py or YAML or whatever. It's just a standalone file. So it's just the way that OpenSSH works in terms of locating the .pem file, the IP, and then the associated DNS record to it. So I'll type code dot, which will then open VS Code and show that I have some contents in this config file already. I already copied and pasted the correct
host name and .pem identity file, and then it just defaults to user Ubuntu. So to do this, I'll just pretend I'm you and delete the contents here, and you can just copy and paste this placeholder code or placeholder content for where you're going to put your correct host name identity file, and then just leave user. So back into VS Code, I'll just paste it as is. Make sure to leave one blank line here, and then what you're going to want to do is update your host to the correct domain name. So I'm going to update it to orangutan orchard. And then I'm going to use the elastic IP we just affiliated or assigned to the instance, EC2 instance. So if I go into EC2 here, I can just copy and paste this elastic IP here and the elastic IP address section, and then go back into VS Code here and paste it. And then the identity file, as long as you use the correct or the same one as the one outlined in the wiki here, orangutan-server-key.pem, that should be correct. So if this is all looking good, all you're going to want to do is make sure to click save, and then it should be available. So if I type cat for basically printing out the contents of config, I should see both of these appropriately here. So I do see some spacing issues. Make sure that they're exactly aligned, just as if they were in the code here. So to do that, I could just backspace here once, and then backspace here once, and then backspace here once, and that should be good in terms of fixing the alignment, and there should be no problems. I don't think there would be any problems if you didn't do that, but just to keep it clean. So I have two DNS records, one for airflow.orangutan-stem.com, which is what I demoed in the video earlier, and then another one for orangutan-orchard.com, which I just created right now in front of y'all. So once this is all done and we're able to see that DNS record, we should be able to SSH into the new record we just added via OpenSSH, so too far ahead. So be sure to replace your correct DNS name host. So that's your actual airflow dot your domain name.com is whatever you had just registered in Route 53, and then you want to also make sure that your config file is using your correct elastic IP and your correct .pem file. Users always default to Ubuntu on EC2 server if you set up the Ubuntu distro, so you should be good there, and make sure to keep that part in there. So once all the SSH directory config file contents are correct, what we can do is actually open up a new terminal, or use the same one if we want to, but I'll just open up a fresh one here, and we could actually SSH into our new DNS record. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Hopefully this all works. This is all a gamble sometimes, but this is our first time accessing the EC2 instance, so it'll ask you, are you sure you want to continue connecting? You can just type yes, and then it's going to permanently add that IP affiliated to that airflow.yourdomainname.com. So for me, it was airflow.orangutan-orchard.com. So we're officially into the EC2 instance, which is great. Now comes the fun part of just cloning the code base, installing Docker in the EC2 instance, which is a little bit more challenging than the desktop installer, which does all the work for you, and then setting up the env file and getting everything set up with Traefik. So if you made it this far, don't give up. You're very close. This is actually a pretty challenging part of the activity that's set up for aspiring data engineers or data scientists that want to learn more about software engineering and DevOps, and this is a really good exercise to improve your ability to set up a production grade Airflow environment on an EC2 instance and save a lot of money versus going through a hosted cloud service like Cloud Composer or AWS Managed Workflow for Apache Airflow. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video before continuing. I'm going to grab a quick bite and then I'll be right back. All right, so in the next step, we're going to want to clone the orangutan-stem codebase onto the EC2 server. So the first thing we're going to want to check is that Git is already on the EC2 server. So by default, all the Ubuntu distros that you register as an EC2 instance on AWS should already have Git installed by default. So I can just check real quick with this git ---- version command, and I'll see Git version 2341. So all good there.
The next thing we're going to want to do is create a new directory called projects, cd into it, and then actually clone the code base there. So I'll just run all these commands very quickly. We've gone over them a couple times already, so I won't describe what they do in detail. Cd into the projects folder, and then this is actually where I'm going to clone it. So I can just copy and paste it, probably easier. Have it all memorized by now, but just good to practice and quicker. So the next step we're going to want to do is actually install Docker on the EC2 server. And this is a little bit complex, yet easy if you just follow along and don't skip steps. Just be very delicate with it and make sure to not go out of order. So, this comes all from the Docker engine install site. So if you just Google like install Docker on Linux, you'll see like set up Docker engine. And this is all from their documentation directly. So I'll try to keep it up to date if anything ever changes, but there's some descriptions on what all of the commands are doing above each of them. So I'll just go ahead and copy and paste it for the sake of time and put it in. I probably already tested this, so I'm just going to say yes to overwriting it. I already tried running this command just to verify it worked, but it all should be good if it's your first time running it. The next thing we're going to want to do is update all of the apt package index. So sudo apt get update. That's just going to make sure everything gets updated. And then we're going to want to install Docker Engine, Container Nerd, and Docker Compose. So to do that, I'll just copy the command again, paste it in here, click enter. Do I want to continue? Yes. Just keep hitting yes as you go through, and you're prompted. This should run pretty quickly, but if it doesn't, be patient. It's all running server side, so as long as you can submit the command, it's going to run on EC2's latency. In the first command that I copy and pasted up here, I had already run it, but that one should take about 60 seconds at most. I just wanted to test it out that it was working. So once we're getting close here, it should say no services need to be restarted, no containers need to be restarted, no user sessions are running outdated binaries. So that's all good. So now we're going to actually test that everything was installed properly with Docker with the sudo docker run hello world. Just copy and paste it here. And yeah, it looks like it did. So hello from Docker. This message shows that your installation appears to be working correctly. So all good, and we can continue. So the next thing we're going to want to do is to be able to run Docker without sudo. We have to create a new group for it. So just again, I'll copy and paste all these commands here. And if you want to get some more details on what they do and what they are, ChatGPT or Google is your best friend there. Paste this. So you might see a message like this group already exists. That's fine. Just be sure to enter it in case it didn't. And then I'll paste this as well to institute the new group. And then I should be able to run this Docker run hello world without sudo as it did up here. So just to test that here, I'll just run it. And it looks like it ran. So we can now run Docker without sudo. So another thing we're going to want to do is to set up Docker to run on boot with systemd. So I'm going to just copy and paste these commands here. Looks like both of those ran nicely. Let's just make sure both of them did. Yep. And we're on to the next step, which is part 11. And this is where we're going to actually create the env file and modify it. So we already had cloned the code base over. So if we navigate to the Airflow directory, I'll just type ls, and we see the code base, high level repo name orangutan-stem. So if I cd into it and then go into the Airflow directory, I'll want to create a new file called .env, which is just an environment variables file. And this is where we're actually going to copy and paste this content right here into it. So to do that, since we're on a Linux server, I can just type touch space .env, which will just create an empty file. So if I see it now, I should just see a .env file somewhere, but it's hidden. So if I do ls space -a, that will show all the files that are even hidden, like environment variable files. So that's just another shortcut to seeing that it's there. To modify the file now is where it gets fun. I've been using Vim a lot more frequently, but if you're used to Nano, that should work too. So I'll show you how to do it with Vim real quick. So I'll just type Vim and then the actual file itself. You can use tab to autocomplete, and then once I'm in here, this is where Vim is a little tricky for some people, but don't be scared of it. Just type the escape key a couple times just to make sure you're not in any other mode, but you'll want to type I for insert mode, and you'll see this insert icon appear right here, and this is where we'll actually copy and paste it. So if you just right click and click paste, all of this stuff should be here. as you want it, and then you can just hit escape again. And then as you start typing, you want to type :x exclamation point, and then that will save and write out the file. So if I cat.env, I should see the Airflow UID, which is defaulted to 50,000. This is directly from the Airflow documentation. The Airflow GID is set to 0, and then this setting for Airflow web server warn deployment exposure equal to false, just so you don't get this weird red banner at the top. So everything's looking good here. We're going to want to do one other modification that's really important, because if you run the Codebase directly as clone, it probably won't work unless you do this. So Traefik is our reverse proxy and load balancer, very similar to NGINX. So Traefik is basically a way that we can point the Airflow web server to a publicly accessible domain. So we'll want to make sure that we update the Airflow user and password, because the Docker compose YAML file basically creates a new user with called Airflow if it doesn't already exist with the password Airflow. So once we start up the Airflow web server for the first time and point it, we definitely want to update the Airflow user and password and make sure Airflow is still an active user, but with a different password, so that nobody around the world could just log in. So before we do that, we're going to want to just modify this one last file, as I was saying. So we're going to cd into Airflow /compose/prod/Traefik to get there. So we can just use Vim again. So I think I'm already in the Airflow directory, so I'll just cd compose prod Traefik, and then if I do ls, I should see two files, Traefik.yml, YAML, and then Docker file. So the one we're going to want to modify here is the actual YAML file. So to do that, we could just use Vim again, and then start typing Traefik.yml. So there's a couple different points where we're going to want to update it. So just hit that escape key a couple times, click I for insert mode, and then if you scroll down all the way to the points where it says need to adjust this, that's where you're going to want to adjust it. So you're not really adjusting much. All you're adjusting really is this your domain name part. If you kept the Airflow subdomain and just kept following along the activity as is, you can leave the Airflow prefix as the subdomain. Then it's Airflow orangutan-orchard for my domain name. Let me just make sure that's all spelled correctly, which I don't think it is. It's a little late, but we're going to get through this. And we need to adjust this one here. So this is the way it's set up for the other demo orangutan-stem site I had, but I'm going to use orangutan-orchard. And then I think there's one more spot right here that we're going to have to update. So almost there. And then that looks correct. So that was 3 lines of code we updated: the email line in line 25, line 34 for the host, and then line 45 for the host. So that's for the Flower secure router, and then I think the other one was for the web secure router. So if you want to learn more about that, ChatGPT it. I'll make some future videos that goes way more into depth with Docker and Docker Compose and Traefik and all the other neat components that are involved in it, but that can own its own video series in itself. So all of this looks good. I'm going to hit escape just to get out of insert mode. I'm going to type that :x and then exclamation point to write out the changes, and then just to ensure that they're there, I'm going to cat the actual Traefik file. And then if I scroll up, I should be seeing all of these components that I just updated properly represented. So if I scroll up a little bit, I can see orangutan-orchard all spelled correctly, hopefully. That all looks good, and we are good to go, it looks like. So we got Traefik set up. The next thing we're going to actually do is run Docker Compose. So we're going to go back into the Airflow directory, so I can just do cd dot a couple times, cd dot actually, and then we're going to run the following command. So Docker Compose -f prod.yaml build. Paste this into here. And this is actually going to set up the prod.yaml file, which is set up to point to Traefik, so that we could have the web server listen into the appropriate public IP / domain record that we have set up for it. So, so this is the first time that we're setting this up. So we're going to want to use this Docker Compose Airflow init. this is basically running Docker Compose up if you watched the part 1 video, but running it on a specific YAML file and then running the init command within that YAML file so that it appropriately initializes everything. This is really important. I think you can get away with it without the init command, running that first with the local deployment, but with the server-side one, you definitely have to run it. So still in the Airflow directory, no CDing out of that. So I'm just going to copy and paste it as is. This is going to actually pull all the necessary layers of all the containers that are going to run in the background while this all gets started. So we'll give it a little bit. It might take a minute or two just to get set up for the first time. So might pause the video for a second, come back. All right, I'm back. So pulling the last couple containers, the Redis, Postgres, and then it looks like everything is looking good. And so it's just finishing up some of the last steps of the initialization. So this container is run as root user, so don't worry about that message. We should be good for right now. And then we'll start seeing some logs reports. So it's saying here that we want to make sure to control or command C to exit it in some way. This migrates and seeds the database, which is like, a part of the Docker, set up on the back end of EC2. So just be sure to just, control C if you have to, or you could exit out of the terminal itself. So I'm just going to exit out of the terminal here just for good housekeeping. And then I'm going to open up a new terminal as it kind of says here in the wiki. And then I'm going to cd into, first I'm going to SSH into airflow.orangutanorchard.com. Once I'm in the EC2 instance on SSH, I'm going to actually then cd into projects, orangutan-stem, and then Airflow. And then once I'm in the cd'd into the Airflow directory, I can run this command here, which is actually going to start up the prod.yaml file, not just the initialization. It's going to start up all components, including the web server that we have pointed to our public IP/domain. So all these containers already are created, and they should have been booted up with the initialization command that we had in the prior step. But once this gets going, we should start seeing the web servers getting booted up and created. And so if we go into our domain that we'd set up for this, so if we go to airflow.orangutan, and I'm not going to use orangutan-stem, but I'm going to use orangutan-orchard.com, I should be redirected to the Airflow web server login and stream, which is great. That means Traefik worked as we set it up. So hopefully it worked the same for you. You updated the appropriate fields to the correct domain that you'd registered and whatnot. So by default, based on the YAML file, username Airflow and password Airflow should work. So I'm going to go ahead and enter that, and then I should be redirected into the Airflow web server here, and I should see that there's a broken DAG, which indicates I need my OpenWeatherMap API key inserted as a variable, but we'll worry about that in a bit. There's a really important thing that we definitely want to do right now, which is we want to update the actual Airflow password for the Airflow user. And this is because if we ever shut down the Docker container for Airflow, or the set of containers for Airflow, whenever we boot it up again with Docker Compose, it checks that there's a record in the database that has user Airflow, and it can be whatever password, but that user has to exist. So we have to basically remove the user, recreate it with the new password, and then we could just make sure that everything is there. So to do that, we could use the Airflow command line. It's pretty easy. So it runs on Docker Compose. So if we're in the EC2 instance, we could just cd out of it. But if we go back into projects, orangutan-stem, Airflow, we want to be in the same directory where this YAML file is for prod. So then I'm going to run Docker Compose, run Airflow, CLI, bash. This is going to start up a couple containers, and you'll see there's a new prompt title for the Airflow user that we're running this for. So basically, we're going to create a new user just so that we have one that we could use to modify the old one. So we're going to first create the new user. I'm just going to copy and paste the values here that we have. It doesn't really matter. Whatever you put in here, we just want to make sure we create a new user. So I'm calling this new user username admin. So this should all work nicely. Once it's submitted, you should have a clean command line prompt that you can work off of. And then we're going to copy and paste this airflow users delete command to delete the airflow users. So it's going to first prompt me for creating a password for the new user I just created, which is username admin. So I'm just going to do it to something I could easily remember. It'll have you repeat it just to be extra sure it's the correct one. And then user admin created with role admin was created. So I have a backup user to log in with in case I don't have airflow as the default for a second. So going back to this command in the wiki, I'm just going to copy and paste this. So I'm still in the airflow command line interface. I'm going to go ahead and run this. So it's going to delete the user airflow. Once this is all done, I should see a log that says user airflow deleted. And then the last step is to actually recreate the airflow user. And this is the just recreating it really. Just going to paste this into here and that should run. Once it does, we'll see new user airflow created, or it's going to prompt us for a new password. And this is where we're going to want to securely enter a new password that is going to work and not be, username airflow, password airflow. So, this is a public IP to access the web server. So we would just want to make it secure, which is already pre-built into airflow. So everything is looking nice. So if we actually open up a new, terminal here to kill this airflow command line interface, that's an option. It automatically gets killed, I think, by default if you just exit out the terminal. But if you want to keep this one open and we want to kill the actual container itself, I can show you the command to do that. So if I just type SSH back into the EC2 instance and type in orangutan-orchard, I'll be back into the SSH command line for EC2 for this actual instance. And then if I type docker ps, what it's going to do is show me all the containers running right now. So I should see the top one, I think, which is for the airflow command line interface, I believe, which you can see right here. You can see that airflow CLI run, and then it's marked with something. So if I wanted to just kill it, you can just run this docker kill command, which is right here, and then the actual container ID that's affiliated to the airflow CLI. So I can just type docker kill and then paste it, and then that will kill it. So then when I type docker ps, we don't see that no more, and we should be able to go back into airflow.orangutan-orchard.com, and that should be good. So, and then it's going to prompt us to relog in, and if we try username airflow and password airflow, it will not work because I updated the record, so it has a new password which I will enter, and it's a little bit more sophisticated, so it's not easy to break into unless you have an insane computer. And then this is the only error message we have, which is DAG import error. All we have to really do is copy and paste our open weather map API keys. So I'll do that real quick just so we can make this all go away and make it look all shiny and nice. Close off the activity real good. In part 3, we're actually going to be doing some cool stuff with the actual anatomy of the DAG and all the components like the connections, the variables, and all that stuff. So really exciting. Don't use that API key. I'm going to reactivate it right after this video, so it won't even work. But yeah, part 3 will go into the actual anatomy of the DAG itself. So once we enter that open weather map API key, just give it about a minute to refresh. This DAG import error will go away, and then we'll actually see the DAG visible. And in the next video, we'll go through all the different tasks, the operators, the connections, the variables, all the different parts of Docker Compose and the containers that are started up as a result of it. And then in part 4, we're actually going to do the cool and valuable part to what data engineers and data scientists and machine learning engineers do, which is materialize the data pipeline into something valuable, which is generally a dashboard or an API. So I'll be showing you guys how to set this up as a dashboard in Tableau. So looking forward to it. Please subscribe. It's very motivating for me. Definitely love making all these videos because it's just a good layout and outline of all the skills that I have and I'm trying to expand my ability on. So you definitely want to subscribe so I keep making more content that's hopefully going to be valuable to you and improve my skill set, just as the goal of the project was. So look forward to seeing you in the next video. Probably will be published in the next couple of days. I won't leave a gap as big as I did for this one. Just wanted to make sure I got this activity. Part 2 completely 100% right. So see you later.